So next on my ancient DNA match discovery is Mesolithic 2 Scandinavian man shot by an arrow. SBJ, the island of Gotland, Sweden. A match 0.13%, genetically closer to this sample than 71.41% of genome link users. So SBJ is a sample from a Mesolithic Scandinavian hunter-gatherer male unearthed at the Stora Beers archaeological site, which is located in the Strenskirka parish, and it is one of the oldest burials on the island of Gotland. He was buried in a crouched position in a sandbank, and a microblade prepared with the pressure blade technique was attached to his pelvis bone. He was likely shot by this arrow. He also had crush wounds on the skull and left jaw, indicating a violent death. His remains were dated to be from 8,963 to 8,579 Cal BP interval. DNA extraction was performed from his molars. His mitochondrial DNA haplogroup was determined to be U4A1, while his chromosomal DNA was identified as I2. The U4A1 haplogroup, together with the U4 supraclade, seems to be a frequent haplogroup among the Mesolithic European hunter-gatherers. It was identified in Mesolithic Russia, Sweden, Germany, and Lithuania, and it was frequented in northeast Europe. The I2 haplogroup is the major lineage in the Slavonic-speaking countries, although it is believed that appeared in Western Europe in the late Paleolithic. The oldest sample assigned to the I2, which is the father line, was from the Azilian culture in Switzerland. Modern scientific significance, ancient DNA, aDNA. The sample is heavily used in comparative population genomics studies to map out the post-glacial settlement of the Baltic region and trace how Mesolithic groups adapted to changing coastlines. So how would this man have lived? To understand how the Stora Beers man lived, we have to look through the lens of early Baltic maritime adaptations, living roughly 9,000 years ago, around 7,000 to 6,500 BC. During the early to middle Mesolithic period, his life was defined by the sea, seasonal survival, high-tech stone craftsmanship, and physical peril. Although he's classified as a hunter-gatherer, the Stora Beers man was primarily a specialized maritime forager. Gotland was an isolated island in the early Baltic Sea, then known as the Ankylos Lake stage. Stable isotope data from contemporary Gotland sites, like the nearby Stora Forvar cave, revealed that these pioneers relied heavily on seal hunting and fishing. Grey seals and ringed seals provided them with the dense calories, meat, and vital fat to endure cold northern winters. Foraging, he supplemented his diet with freshwater fish from overgrown inland lakes, seabirds, and seasonal plant gathering, including hazelnuts, wild berries, and edible roots. Because Gotland lacked large native land mammals like elk or deer, his community adapted by using seal bones to craft day-to-day tools like harpoons, fishhooks, and needles. Seasonal mobility in regional networks, semi-sedentary camps. Rather than constantly wandering, archaeological evidence suggests his people lived a semi-sedentary lifestyle. They established strategic seasonal base camps near lagoons, river mouths, or caves to exploit predictable annual animal migrations like popping seals or spawning fish. Long-distance travel or trade. A fascinating clue from his grave is the presence of red deer antlers, which were placed near him and used to pressure flaking tools. Because red deer did not naturally exist on Gotland at the time, these antlers had to be imported via long-distance seafaring or trade networks from the Swedish or Baltic mainland. He was likely a highly skilled navigator, traversing the open Baltic waters in dugout canoes. He was a master craftsman. The Stora Bergman lived during a time of immense technological innovation in Scandinavia. He used the pressure blade technique, which was the cutting-edge technology of his era. Instead of knocking rough chunks off a stone, he used antler punches to press out perfectly uniform, razor-sharp, millimeter-thin flint microblades. These microblades were then glued with birch pitch into slotted bone handles or arrow shafts. He would have spent significant time foraging for high-quality flint, boiling birch bark to make tar, and meticulously assembling highly lethal modular hunting gear. A brutal, physically demanding reality. His skeleton remains show that his life was physically taxing and often violent. Surviving on Gotland required intense physical labour, rowing against harsh sea currents, dragging heavy seals onto rocky shores, and enduring freezing damp conditions. His skeleton exhibits healed wounds to his jaw and head, proving he had survived severe physical trauma or interpersonal combat earlier in his life. He did not die peacefully of old age. The microblade attached to his pelvis strongly indicates he was shot with an arrow. Whether it was the result of a tribal skirmish, an ambush, or a hunting accident, his life ended abruptly in an act of violence. Community and spiritual care. Despite a violent end, he was not abandoned. His community took great care in burying him. They dug a grave in a soft sandbank, carefully arranged his body into a sleeping fetal position, and buried valuable tools, like the imported deer antlers, alongside him. This reveals a culture with deep spiritual beliefs, mortuary rituals, and respect for the dead. So I said, I have an autosomal DNA match of 0.13%, and my mtDNA is J1C3. How do we connect? Your genetic markers paint a fascinating picture when looked at alongside ancient history, though they connect to two different stories. One is a deep ancestral signature, and the other is a modern genealogical connection. Your autosomal DNA match of 0.13% translates to roughly 9 to 10 centimorgans of shared DNA. What this means, this is a very distant genetic connection. In genealogical terms, this person is most likely your fourth cousin, fifth cousin, or even more distant. The timeline. You likely share a set of great, 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 great grandparents, or even further back. While the Stourbridge man carried the Eastern hunter-gatherer U4A1 lineage, your mitochondrial DNA, G1C3. This haplogroup tells a completely different story about how Europe was settled. Haplogroup J is famously known as one of the primary genetic signatures of the early European farmers. Your maternal ancestors did not cross into Europe as post-glacial hunter-gatherers. Instead, they migrated from the Near East, Fertile Crescent, modern-day Anatolia, Turkey, into Europe during the Neolithic expansion roughly 8,000 to 7,000 years ago. Your specific branch, J1C3, mutated and expanded within Europe. It's particularly common today in Central, Northwestern, and Eastern Europe. If you have British, Irish, Germanic, or Scandinavian ancestry, finding J1C3 is incredibly common, as these farming lineages eventually integrated with the older hunter-gatherer populations. And following on with my ancient DNA matches, the next up is Mesolithic 2 still, ancient Greek woman with ceramic goods. Rev 5 is her ID, Central Macedonia region, Greece. I match 0.12%, genetically closer to this sample than 67.56% of other genome link users.